From childhood, you are rigidly conditioned to be legible. You are taught to smile to show friendliness, to frown to show seriousness, and to constantly broadcast your emotional state so others can easily read you. The hidden motive behind this conditioning is simple. Society demands an open book because an open book is safe. If everyone knows exactly what you are thinking, you are entirely predictable and manageable. But history's most dangerous strategists viewed this transparency as a fatal vulnerability. A ruler who explains their every move and intention is effortlessly anticipated by their enemies. Presenting yourself as a wide-open, completely understandable person is an open invitation for manipulation. It turns your own emotional states into a toolkit for your rivals. We are often told that power looks like aggressive dominance. The modern cultural myth tells you to take up space, stand wide, puff out your chest, and dominate a room through sheer volume. Look closely at that behavior. Aggressive expansion is exactly what a frightened animal does to avoid being eaten. It is a biological bluff. Constantly broadcasting your hustle or projecting physical aggression simply signals a desperate need for external validation. True apex power operates differently. It is an invisible, psychological architecture that forces the human brain to submit before a single word is ever spoken. Dominance is rarely about controlling physical territory. It is about becoming a psychological mirror that reflects people's deepest primal insecurities back at them until they subconsciously ask you for permission to exist. Amateurs trying to project authority make an immediate mistake. They adopt a persona of absolute, unsmiling coldness. But permanent ice makes you a predictable, static object. Once people adapt to your coldness, it loses all its weight. To see how influence actually functions, we have to look at this chart illustrating the variable ratio schedule from behavioral psychology. When you reward subjects on a flat, predictable pattern, they get bored. But when rewards are completely randomized, sometimes massive, sometimes non-existent, their engagement spikes into an obsessive frenzy. You apply this exact data to human interaction. You deliver sudden, hyper-focused warmth. You lock eyes, validate them deeply, and make them feel vital. And then, without warning, you completely detach. You treat them with the sterile, polite efficiency of a doctor. The target's internal reality will scramble. Starved of the validation you just gave them, their ego panics. They assume they did something wrong and frantically begin overperforming to win back that initial high. They do not bend to your will because you applied force. Their neurochemistry simply becomes terrified of the clinical, analytical void that awaits them if they lose your approval. We live in a culture that worships exhaustion. People constantly broadcast their stress, their lack of sleep, and the sheer exertion it takes to survive because they equate visible effort with virtue. In the 16th century, Italian courtier Baldassare Castiglione documented the exact opposite approach. He called it sprezzatura, the art of studied carelessness. Sprezzatura is the discipline of executing immense power, brilliant maneuvers, or difficult tasks while making it appear as though it required absolutely zero exertion. Think of a duck gliding across a perfectly still pond. Above the water, it is totally serene and undisturbed. What you don't see is the furious paddling happening beneath the surface. You must conceal the paddling. When you dismantle a rival's argument or execute a massive project with casual grace, it creates terrifying cognitive dissonance in your peers. Because they cannot see the mechanics of your struggle, they cannot calculate the ceiling of your power. Eradicating the display of effort removes your relatable humanity. Your rivals will surrender without a fight, simply because they perceive you as a force of nature they cannot measure. This discipline of effortlessness extends to your physical presence. Strip away all frantic, anxious, kinetic energy. Stop shifting your weight. Stop eager nodding. Cultivate a heavy, absolute stillness. When an opponent speaks, apply the specimen gaze. Observe them with the profound, relaxed, entirely emotionless curiosity of a scientist studying a biological sample in a petri dish. This gaze acts as a vacuum. It sucks the confidence out of the room. The speaker realizes they are performing for you. Their words will falter, and they will scramble to find a crack in your serene exterior. But projecting this level of heavy superiority carries a massive risk. It triggers venomous, coordinated envy. To survive your own aura, you must deploy a defensive countermeasure, the decoy flaw. Historical masterminds routinely engineered fake vulnerabilities. They cultivated reputations for laziness or played up a physical limp. They deliberately gave their rivals a highly controlled weakness to focus on. Feeding your enemies a petty, harmless weakness acts as an ego pressure valve. They feel superior in one useless domain, blinding them entirely to your actual machinations. You control exactly where they underestimate you. None of these techniques matter if you are performing them out of a desperate craving to be feared. If you rely on external reactions to feel powerful, the architecture will collapse. The desire to be feared is exactly as weak as the desire to be loved. Both are desperate requests for the audience to validate your existence. Both make you a slave to perception. True sovereignty requires a final internal transformation. You must undergo the atrophy of validation, systematically starving your ego's reliance on external feedback. We can visualize standard human interaction with this network diagram. The baseline social economy is a frantic marketplace built entirely on the fragile exchange of mutual ego-stroking and emotional bartering. When you step outside this economy and refuse to trade in the currency of validation, you become an alien entity. You render yourself immune to both flattery and rejection. This is true ruthlessness. It is not emotional cruelty. It is the absolute, mechanical absence of hesitation in executing your strategy, totally detached from the opinions of the room. When people realize that their standard tools of control, guilt, shame, and outrage are completely useless against your density, they will experience profound vertigo. They reach a biological endgame. When human beings encounter an entity they cannot manipulate, bribe, or break, their only remaining response is submission. This transformation carries a brutal cost. The chaotic noise of superficial, energy-draining friendships will vanish. People will flee, terrified by the sudden, heavy boundaries of your presence. You face a polarizing ultimatum. You can choose the comfort of being easily digested by the masses, or the lonely effectiveness of being untouchable. You cannot have both. Achieving this sovereign architecture requires you to kill the desire to be a good person in the eyes of the mediocre. It leaves you and you alone as the sole architect of the board.